Hi everyone. Today's topic, I would like to discuss about Apex programming. Understand what is Apex and what is Apex programming. So let's start. So what exactly Apex programming here? So the first point which refers is it's a cloud-based object-oriented programming language. Okay. So here if you could see, it is a cloud-based object-oriented programming language which is used to build custom business logics. Through Apex programming, we can build a custom business logics. And it's a cloud-based object-oriented programming language. Means like we have a noops concepts which will be shared further or which will be discussed further. Okay. So by using Apex, we can build our own controller classes. There is a capability by using Apex, we can build controller classes, and each functionality in Apex will be implemented with the help of classes and objects. So the functionality or the logic in the Apex will be implemented with the help of objects and classes and objects. Apex is not a case sensitive programming language. So it's not a case sensitive programming language. Okay. So each Apex programming statement should be ends with a semicolon. Okay. Each This is very important. Each Apex programming statement should be ends with a semicolon. Apex is a tightly coupled programming language which enforces the developer to define the variables before its uses. So what Apex is saying, so is before using anything, we need to provide a variable like what it is saying. Apex is a tightly coupled programming language which enforces the developer to define the variable. We need to define, as a developer, we need to define a variable before its uses. So the variable which actually stores some value or it is kind of some name or value which is a kind of data type, something like that. Okay. So ideally, Apex is a tightly coupled programming language which enforces the developer to define the variable before its uses. Okay. And Apex is a tightly integrated with the Salesforce objects, which allows us to perform all the DML operations on the records like insert, update, delete, undelete, and upsert. This is very important. So why is Apex so important in the Salesforce? Okay, Apex is tightly integrated. This will be fine. We can understand with the Salesforce objects, which allows us to perform all the DML operations on the records like insert, update, delete, undelete, and upsert. Okay. By using Apex, we can implement complex business logics and transactional flows and complex validation rules. By using Apex, we can retrieve the records from one or more objects with the help of SQL queries. Let's point out here. By using Apex, we can retrieve the records from one or more objects with the help of SQL queries. Using SQL queries, we can retrieve the records from one or more objects with the help of SQL queries, right? By using Apex, we can search for the required content in multiple objects in Salesforce with the help of Sozzle queries. SQL means it's a Salesforce object query language. Sozzle means it's a Salesforce object search language. Okay. By using SQL, we can retrieve the records. By using Apex, we can retrieve the records from one or more objects. With the Sozzle, we can search for the required content in multiple objects in Salesforce. By using Apex, we can have the integration of the Salesforce application with third-party external systems with the help of REST API or SOAP API. So this is also very important. The ability to integrate with some other systems. So we can use by using apex also is possible. Okay, that capability has been provided by the Salesforce. So what are the APIs we can use, like REST API or SOAP API? So what it does mean, by using Apex, we can have the integration of the Salesforce application with the third-party external systems with the help of REST API or SOAP API. Each Apex programming should be compiled by using Apex compiler and executed by using Apex runtime. Each Apex program should be compiled by using Apex compiler and executed by using Apex runtime. So for this Apex also, for every programming language there is a compilation. So for this Apex programming also there is an Apex compiler. So what it does, like when we write a when we write a code, okay, if we have some syntax issues, then it will provide some compilation error. Okay, compile. This Apex compiler will provide some compilation error. Okay, so that's all about Apex programming. So because of all these privileges has been provided by the Apex, Apex is very important concept in the Salesforce. The backend logic, everything can be written by using Apex. So whenever with the provided out of box features, the functionality is not able to um, work on, or the functionality we cannot achieve using out of box, then with the usage of this Apex, we can do the customization according to the business needs. So, okay. So, in order to move further, we need to understand what is an Apex programming execution architecture. This is also very basic, but this is very important. Going further and learn, to work on some programming or to code some programming on Apex. Okay. So here, if you see, Apex provides a set of fundamental building blocks to be used upon implementing the custom business logic. So Apex is providing some fundamental building blocks that can be used upon implementing the custom business logic. So Apex is a tightly coupled programming language which enforces to define the variables before its usage. Upon defining the variables, we have to use data type. Okay, so this is what I earlier discussed, or earlier I said. So upon defining the variable, then we have to use data type as well. Let's say, uh, you know, if a customer name need to be stored, customer name is a kind of some text. It's a kind of, you know, text data type. Okay, so then what is the data type we need to use in order to make understand to the system? That is a string. Okay, like that we need to understand here, upon defining the variables we have to use data type. Then only the Apex will understand which variable, or this variable will hold this type of values or this type of storage. Okay, data type describes two things as below: what type of value the variable can hold. Okay, if we define some variable, if we define some data type like a string customer name, so it means string is a text. Okay, we text or some kind of text area. So the string defines that variable can hold only text or text area kind of information. Okay, so this is the meaning of the first point: what type of value the variable can hold, how much memory needs to be allocated for the variable. Okay, so if we assign some value to particular string data type, or if we assign some value to the variable for the string data type, so it defines how much memory to be allocated for that variable. Okay, so this is very important. We need to understand very clearly. Data type describes two things. So what type of value the variable can hold, the very first point. how much memory needs to be allocated for that variable. In the further, I would show you uh, some examples, then you can understand. So Apex provides two categories of data types. Primitive data types, S object data types. Okay. S object means Salesforce object. So first of all, we need to learn what are primitive data types, how it will be useful, to write the programming in a Apex. So these are the basic data types given by each programming language. Apex provides the below primitive data types. Okay. So for example, integer, string, long, decimal, double, boolean, id, date, date time, block, object. Okay, these are some examples. Primitive data type supports the static memory allocation. Means, so static means it won't be changed. Okay, it supports the static memory allocation, which will reserve the memory for the variables upon definition. Okay, while upon defining the variable, then only if we give some value, it takes like it supports the static memory allocation. That is what the meaning of it. Primitive data type supports the static memory allocation, which will reserve the memory for the variables upon definition. Okay, while defining the variable, then only we can, if we can assign that value, based upon that value, it decides which, how much memory needs to be allocated for that particular variable. Okay. So these are the, some data types which we need to be which we go further, like which I have mentioned here. String data type, it's also a primitive data type. First of all, this data type allows us to store a collection of characters inside the variable, where each character will occupy 2 bytes of memory. Okay. So what it does mean? So it will store a collection of characters. String means a collection of characters inside the variable, where each character will occupy 2 bytes of memory. Okay. For example, I have given here string, it's a data type. Customer name, it's a variable. So since this is a string, I have defined, like this. Okay, we need to provide this symbol, then only it recognize as a string. What I'm saying here, this one we need to define like this, then only the system would recognize this is a string variable. Or else what happens if we define a variable as a string, and without this symbol, then the error it will show, right? It's a compilation error or illegal string, something like that. We definitely, when we provide a data type as a string, so we need to provide the value in a this symbol, like this, which I shown, right? Like this. We need to show like this, and something like whatever you want. I'm just giving like a test here, for example. Okay, like that we need to give. Okay, fine. Boolean. This data type, just a minute. I need to erase it. Okay. In such a way, we need to give a string notation like this. Okay. So I'm just erasing this. Hope everyone understood this. Okay. And next, a boolean. This data type will allows us to store true or false values. Each character field will reference the boolean data type. Okay. So what is meant by boolean here? So This data type will allows us to store true or false values. Okay. In further, like we will have a login and password for every application, or for suppose for every portals. Then, okay, the time it verifies whether the given password is matching or not matching. If it is true or if it is false, it will provide or it will hint the error to the customer. Where that moment of time, this boolean, okay, this boolean means it stores some true or false values. Okay, will be discussed later when I will provide some examples in the later case. Okay, ID. This data type will allows us to store the 18 characters ID of the record. Each ID field, lookup field, master detail field, owner ID field, hierarchical relationship field will reference the ID data type. We have this ID data type which is provided by the Apex. So this data type will store 18 characters ID of the record. Date. This is used to store date values. Each date field inside the object will reference the date data type. Date time. This is used to store date time stamps. Each date time field will reference the date time data type. Created date, last modified date, etc. So this date time definitely when we were noticing this, if someone have exported the file from using data loader from Salesforce, then it will show the created date. What is the created date and last modified date? Okay, so that means date time variable, uh, date time data type which is provided by the Salesforce to store the date time stamps. Integer. This is used to store the integer values between the range, this range, where minus 2 to the power of 32 to 2 to the power of 32, where each integer variable will require 4 bytes of memory. Integer means it allows number values, okay, but the range has been provided this, okay, and the variable, each integer variable will require 4 bytes of memory. So in the further, when we were going to do some practice, or when I was showing some examples on the Apex, then you can realize what exactly and what we can use with this primitive data types. Okay, integer right at the moment it stores the number values and which can range between these minus 2 to the power of 32 to 2 to the power, 2 to the power of 32, and which can hold 4 bytes of memory, where each integer variable will hold 4 bytes of memory. Okay, decimal. This is used to store numerical values along with the decimal points. Only the difference between integer and decimal is integer holds number values, okay, and decimal data type holds along with the number values, it holds the decimal points as well, like 23.23, okay, where it has 23.24. 23 here denotes number and 24 denotes decimal, like that. I just want to show you decimal means here, if I say 23.5. Okay. So this indicates a numerical value and this indicates a decimal value. Okay. So decimal have a capability to store numerical values along with the decimal points. That's what it means. Okay. Double. What do we mean by double? This field is used to store the number values along with the decimal points. Okay. Double also used to store the number values along with the decimal points. Okay. Long. This data type is used to store the larger values. Each long data type will occupy 8 bytes of memory. Okay. This is used to store a larger values. Each long data type will occupy 8 bytes of memory. Object. This data type allows us to store the heterogeneous values with a generic type. Object is the base class for the Apex programming. This will be discussed further. What is how we can use this object data type. Okay. Blob. This data type allows us to store the large binary content of max size up to 2 GB, and this data type will be referenced upon adding the attachments, files, documents, images, pictures, etc. So there are some use cases where sometimes when a case has been created, the customer also store a relevant case with some image. Then that image should be stored on the backend or stored on that particular related to case. Okay. I'm just giving you the example in the layman words. So at that moment of time, the backend logic, if it requires to work, then we need to write some logic on the apex. Then the data type can be used. Here is blob. Variable declaration. This is also very important in the apex. Okay. So variable is nothing but a name to be allocated a memory location to recognize the value. It's nothing but a name to be allocated a memory location to recognize the value. Okay. So access specifier, data type, variable name, and we can assign upon defining the variable itself. Okay. Here are some of the examples I have provided. String is a data type and customer name is a variable, address is a variable. Okay. Integer, it's a number. So customer code, which is kind of a number. Boolean is customer active, whether customer is active or not. Is customer active is yes or no. For the kind of conditions, yes or no, or true or false, Boolean will be used. Date, joining date, birth date. Date is a variable, and joining date and birth date are the sorry, date is a data type, and joining date and birth date are the variables here. Decimal, balance amount. Okay, decimal can hold both numerical and also decimal points. For larger or for more storage or more longer values or more storage, then we can use double also, but generally we use decimal to store number along with the decimal point. If the user didn't assign any value for the variable, then Apex will be assigning the null by default if we were not giving any value here. So Apex treats it's a Apex itself will assign a null value here. Okay. For suppose I given the integer. Okay. For suppose I'm giving the integer. Okay. Here. Okay. I'll do what I can do right at the moment. Okay. If I supposed to give. Okay, something like this. Okay, I just given customer code is equals to 12. So Apex understood this customer code is by default 12. Okay, if we have not provided any value to that particular variable, then it by default assigns as a null value. That is what the mean of this statement. Okay, mean of this point. So if the user didn't assign any value for the variable, then Apex will be used assigning the null value by default. So, okay, we have learned almost the basics of Apex programming. So it is a tightly coupled programming language, and we can do a customized business logic with some building blocks which has been provided by the Apex, like data types, primitive data types we have seen, and variable declaration, how we can declare the variable. And this access specifier will be discussed later when we have discussed on the object oriented programming language. So that moment this access specifier will be more understandable. And coming to this output or printing statements, when the application has been executed, Salesforce will produce the result of the application in terms of a debug log file. This is a result. Okay. So when we execute some logic or some program, then Salesforce will produce the application in terms of debug log file. We have done some programming and we were executing something. We need to know, right, our logic is working or fine. Then it will provide some debug logs where uh, our logic is working fine. We can able to see what exactly in the debug log, what is what we were printing, the result. Okay, we need to print the error messages results inside the debug log file. To print the messages inside the debug log file, we have to use the below statement. System.debug, here system is the function and debug is the method which is provided by the Salesforce. So system.debug, we need to write inside of it. So when we are executing and need to verify whether it is working fine or not, we can take the reference of the debug log file and we can check the result. We can track the debug log files as below from the developer console and needs to go logs tab, and also from monitor menu. From monitor we can go to the logs and debug logs. This can be discussed on the next video. Don't worry. Yeah, that's all today. Hope you like it. Thank you all. And this video will be useful to everyone who were passionate about Salesforce. And thank you all. Yeah, thank you so much.